Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine sitting in a cold room, thousands of miles away from home. Outside your window, the city is glowing. People are laughing, sharing gifts, and celebrating the biggest holiday of the year with the people they love. But you are on the outside looking in, because a plane ticket home costs more than you earn in a month. Holiday loneliness in a foreign land is a silent heartbreak that millions of expats, students, and workers know too well. In this story, we are going to follow that exact journey. The quiet streets, the glitchy video calls home, and the incredible resilience it takes to survive a holiday completely alone. As you listen to this real-life struggle, you will also naturally learn advanced English vocabulary, idioms, and expressions used to describe deep emotions, isolation, and inner strength. Let's begin Chapter 1. The departure screen at the airport terminal did not lie. Leo stared at the glowing numbers on his laptop screen, hoping for a sudden drop in prices. Instead, the ticket cost had jumped another $50. Flying home for the holidays was officially impossible. The flight prices were sky high, completely out of reach for a student working a part-time kitchen job. It was a bitter pill to swallow. Around him, the university dorm was changing. For weeks, his roommates had talked nothing but family traditions and home-cooked meals. Now, the hallways were filled with the sound of rolling suitcases and excited goodbyes. Every time someone asked Leo about his plans, he put on a brave face. "I'm just staying here to work this year," he would say with a forced smile. By Friday afternoon, the building went completely silent. The lively chatter that usually filled the shared kitchen was replaced by the hum of the empty refrigerator. Leo sat on the edge of his bed, looking at his small backpack. He was officially priced out of his own family Christmas. He walked to the window and looked down at the street. Taxicabs were lining up, loaded with luggage, carrying people toward train stations and airport gates. Everyone had a destination. Everyone had someone waiting for them on the other side. Leo closed his laptop and pulled his jacket tight against the draft coming through the glass. The holiday season had not even started yet, but the isolation was already setting in. He was completely alone in a city that felt bigger and colder than ever before. The mass exodus of the city began in earnest the very next morning. Leo stood by the front gates of the campus, watching the last few students head out. His closest friend, who was always full of energy, hugged him tightly before jumping into a waiting car. "Are you sure you will be okay here alone?" his friend asked, looking genuinely concerned. Leo just smiled and nodded, pretending that having the entire place to himself was a luxury. But as the car pulled away and disappeared around the corner, the silence returned, heavier than before. He decided to walk down to the local market to buy some basic groceries for the coming days. The streets that were usually bursting with life and commuters felt strangely hollow. Many of the small family-owned shops already had signs on their doors wishing everyone a happy holiday. They were closing early so the owners could travel and see their own loved ones. At the supermarket, the cashier was making polite small talk with every customer in line. "Heading home for the holidays?" she asked warmly as she scanned Leo's few items. Leo felt a familiar tightness in his chest, but managed to keep his voice steady. "Not this time. Just staying local," he replied, wishing he could avoid the question entirely. He carried his grocery bags back to the dormitory through the chilly, gray afternoon. The holiday spirit was everywhere, hanging in the festive lights and the decorations on every street corner. Yet, for someone with nowhere to go,
All the joyful preparation felt like a party he was not invited to. He unpacked his bread and soup in the quiet kitchen, the loud ticks of the wall clock counting down the hours. The true weight of the vacation weeks was finally starting to sink in.
It was the night before the big holiday, and a deep, heavy silence had settled over the entire neighborhood. Leo could not bear the stifling quiet of his empty room any longer, so he put on his thickest coat and stepped outside. The air was bitterly cold, and his breath formed white clouds in the darkness as he walked along the pavement. Almost every commercial building was completely dark, their doors locked tight for the celebration. Yet, as he turned onto a residential street, the city seemed to glow with a different kind of energy. Warm, golden light spilled out from the windows of the row houses, casting bright squares onto the dark pavement. As he walked past, the rich, savory aroma of roasted meat and sweet spices drifted through the chilly air. He could hear the faint, muffled sound of festive music and the distinct climping of dinner plates from inside. Occasionally, a burst of loud laughter would echo from a living room, ringing clearly in the otherwise silent night. Leo kept his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his eyes darting from one glowing window to the next. It felt strange to be so physically close to such intense warmth while feeling completely frozen on the inside. The vibrant decorations and flickering candles behind the glass felt like displays in a distant, unreachable museum. He was walking through the very heart of the city's joy, yet he remained entirely invisible to it. The contrast between the bustling warmth inside the homes and the dark, empty street was overwhelming. He realized that loneliness did not just mean being alone in a room. True loneliness was standing just outside the circle of celebration, watching the world be happy without you. He turned around and began the slow walk back to his dorm, the festive scents still lingering in the air behind him. Leo paused at the corner of a busy square, his attention caught by the bright lights of a popular local restaurant. The large glass front offered a perfect, unobstructed view of the warmth inside, acting like a giant screen. Right beside the window, a large, multi-generational family was gathered around a massive, beautifully decorated table. He stood still in the shadows of the street, watching the scene unfold like a silent movie. An elderly man, likely the grandfather, was animatedly telling a story, using wide gestures with his hands. The entire table burst into genuine, hearty laughter, their faces creasing with pure and shared happiness. A young mother gently adjusted the collar of her child's bright holiday sweater, smiling softly all the while. The sheer abundance of food, the shared looks of affection, and the easy comfort between them was captivating. For a brief second, Leo felt a painful wave of envy wash over him, sharp and unexpected. He found himself yearning for the simple, familiar chaos of his own family's holiday gatherings back home. He remembered the loud voices competing to be heard, the specific smell of his mother's cooking, and the total safety of belonging. Being on the outside, looking in, made his current reality feel so much starker and more profound. When a waiter approached the window to draw the heavy velvet curtains, Leo quickly stepped back into the darkness. The sudden loss of the view felt like a door being firmly shut in his face, ending the illusion. The bittersweet memory of home clung to him as he continued his walk, making the winter air feel even sharper. His tiny utilitarian dorm room was waiting for him, void of decorations, completely empty, and completely still.
The holiday morning finally arrived, bringing a pale, weak sunlight through the frosted window pane. Leo sat at his desk, staring intently at his phone as the video call app began to ring. Because of the vast time zone difference, his family back home was already in the very middle of their festivities. When the screen finally flickered to life, a loud, chaotic wave of familiar voices flooded his quiet room. His mother held the phone high, trying to show him the entire crowded living room at once. He caught quick glimpses of his cousins laughing, the beautifully wrapped gifts, and the familiar decorations. "We miss you so much, Leo," his mother shouted over the background noise, her eyes full of warmth. Leo forced a bright smile to his face, desperately trying to match their joyful, celebratory energy. "I miss you all too. Everything looks absolutely amazing," he said, raising his voice so they could hear. But the digital connection was highly unstable, and the image began to lag and freeze badly. His sister's voice became completely distorted, and the screen turned into a blurry mass of pixels. A spinning loading icon appeared in the center of the screen, cutting off the warm laughter. Then, with a sharp and final digital beep, the call dropped entirely, leaving him in total silence. He tried to redial the number 3 times, but the poor network connection refused to go through. He slowly set the phone down on the wooden desk, the sudden quiet feeling substantially louder than before. Seeing them so happy, yet being unable to truly participate, made him feel worlds apart from everyone. The brief digital glimpse had not cured his aching loneliness. It had only reminded of the distance.
By midday, a growing hunger forced Leo out of his thoughts and into the dorm's communal kitchen. He had forgotten that absolutely every grocery store and local market would be completely shut for the holiday. Opening the shared refrigerator, he found only empty shelves and the harsh white glare of the interior light. He returned to his room to check his own small pantry, searching for some kind of emergency ration. All he managed to scrape together was a single pack of instant noodles and a stale crust of bread. It was certainly a far cry from the traditional, abundant holiday feasts his family was enjoying back home. Still, he determined to make this makeshift meal feel at least a little bit special for the occasion. He boiled the water carefully, poured it over the noodles, and brought the steaming bowl to his desk. He even found a clean cloth napkin to set down, trying to create a sense of dignity. As he took his first bite, the warm broth offered a comforting wave of physical heat in the chilly room. Eating alone in silence was difficult, but the simple act of cooking helped pass the slowly moving hours. He chewed the dry bread, focusing entirely on the warmth of the bowl pressed against his cold hands. It was not the holiday dinner he had dreamed of, nor was it a meal anyone would ever celebrate. Yet, tasting the simple, salty broth, he felt a tiny spark of quiet pride rise up inside. He was surviving the day on his own terms, using whatever small resources he had available to him. The loneliness was still present, but the warm meal gave him the physical strength to keep moving forward. Needing to escape the stifling 4 walls of his room, Leo decided to take a walk. He headed toward the only place guaranteed to be open, a brightly lit 24-hour convenience store. The automatic doors slid open with a quiet whoosh, and the sharp fluorescent lights made him blink. Behind the counter stood a young man about Leo's age, wearing a store uniform and looking exhausted. Leo picked up a warm can of coffee from the heated shelf and walked slowly to the register. As he paid, he noticed the clerk's name tag and the distinct, familiar accent in his polite greeting. "Working the holiday must be tough," Leo said softly, trying to strike up a casual conversation. The clerk looked up, a faint, knowing smile appearing on his face as he handed over the change.
"It is not ideal, but my family is far away," the clerk replied, shrugging his shoulders resignedly. "A plane ticket home costs way too much money right now, so I decided to take the extra shift." Hearing those words, Leo felt an instant bond of understanding and deep empathy cross between them. They stood in the quiet aisle for a few minutes, sharing stories about their home countries and traditions. It was a simple, brief encounter, but knowing someone else was in the exact same boat changed everything. They were two completely different people from different places, yet they shared the same silent struggle. "Hang in there," Leo said warmly, holding up his coffee can in a small, silent toast. "You too," the clerk replied, with a genuine, supportive smile as the next customer walked in. Leo stepped back out into the chilly night air, feeling the heavy weight in his chest lighten slightly. He was still a foreigner in a massive city, but he no longer felt entirely invisible or alone.
Returning to his quiet dormitory room, Leo sat down on the edge of the bed. The tears that had been threatening to fall all weekend finally came, quiet and unfiltered. He let the sadness wash over him, no longer trying to force a brave smile for anyone else. But after a few minutes, the crying stopped, and a strange, calming stillness took its place. He wiped his face and looked at the blank wall, realizing that he had already survived the hardest part. This painful holiday was incredibly difficult, but it was temporary, and it did not define his entire future. He picked up a pen and a notebook from his desk, deciding to turn a mental corner. Instead of focusing on the empty hallways, he began to slowly count his many blessings. He wrote about the opportunity to study abroad, the kindness of the store clerk, and his family's safety. Seeing the words written down in black and white helped him find a much-needed silver lining. He realized that being alone was testing his strength, making him more self-reliant than ever before. The deep, heavy loneliness was shifting into something entirely different, a quiet form of personal resilience. He was learning to be his own source of comfort and support in the middle of a foreign land. Leo stood up from his desk, determined to fully claim the rest of the evening for himself. He decided to take charge of his environment instead of letting the quiet room dictate his mood. He opened his laptop again, but this time he did not look at unaffordable travel websites or flight prices. Instead, he searched for his absolute favorite childhood movie, one that always made him laugh without fail. He arranged his pillows comfortably against the wall and wrapped his warmest blanket tightly around his shoulders. He even opened the sweet treat he had purchased at the convenience store, treating himself without any guilt. As the familiar opening music of the film began to play, the instant felt a little bit warmer. He was deliberately establishing a brand new tradition, a solo holiday ritual that belonged strictly to him. He realized that celebrations did not always require a massive crowd, a grand feast, or an expensive setting. Sometimes a holiday could simply be about showing profound kindness to yourself when you need it most. He watched the characters on the screen, allowing himself to genuinely laugh out loud in the quiet space. The sound of his own laughter filled the corners of the room, breaking the last remnants of the heavy silence. For the first time all weekend, Leo felt completely relaxed and entirely at peace with his current situation. He was no longer gazing longingly through other people's windows, wishing to be part of their happy lives. He was perfectly content inside his own four walls, creating a safe and joyful haven all on his own. As the movie credits began to roll, he cleared away his wrappers, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The morning after the holiday arrived, bringing a crisp, bright light that completely filled the room. Leo woke up feeling refreshed.
The heavy, suffocating weight of the previous days finally lifted from his shoulders. He dressed quickly, stepped out of the dormitory, and walked back into the heart of the reawakening city. The stifling silence was gone, replaced by the familiar, comforting sounds of regular, everyday life resuming. Store owners were cheerfully rolling up their metal shutters, and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. People were hurrying to work, buses were rumbling down the streets, and the festive tension had vanished. Leo walked with a steady, confident pace, feeling a deep sense of quiet pride with every single step. He had faced the absolute worst of the holiday loneliness, and he had successfully weathered the emotional storm. He had not just survived the difficult weekend, he had grown significantly stronger and far more resilient because of it. The city no longer felt like a cold, unwelcoming fortress built to keep a lonely foreigner on the outside. It was simply a place where he was learning to live, build a future, and fully rely on his own inner strength. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but he felt entirely ready to turn the page and begin again. He stopped by a local cafe, ordered a warm pastry, and smiled at the person waiting in line behind him. The painful isolation was now in the past, and a bright, promising new chapter was officially opening up before him. Leo took a deep breath of the cold morning air, knowing down in his heart that he would always be okay.
Leo's journey shows us that the hardest part of living abroad is not the new language or the unfamiliar streets. The true test is facing the quiet moments, especially when the rest of the world is celebrating without you. But by finding connection in unexpected places and choosing to be kind to himself, Leo turned a painful holiday into a lesson in inner strength. He proved that even when you are worlds apart from the ones you love, you carry their warmth with you, and you are never truly powerless. Living far from home is a brave choice, and if you have ever felt the weight of holiday loneliness, remember that you are not the only one in that boat. If this story resonated with you, and if it helped you practice your English listening today, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us share more real-life struggles and language journeys with learners all around the world. And don't forget, you can find all the vocabulary of the story down below in the description box. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.